We have another 10 minutes of a very interesting demo about internet and markets. I would like to call on stage now, before we enter into the break, Eric Hazan, who is the lead partner at McKinsey in Europe on media. And I'd like to call on stage his partner, Aigool Khalikova. Aigool, where are you? Where's she? Yes, and just have some music in between. Okay. Your partner should come just right now. Where is she? Okay. Yes. So do we have the clicker, actually? Where's stage team? Where's the clicker? Oh, it's... Wenn Sie auch noch eine Minute Platz haben für die Session. Since we are now, thank you for the music. I'd like to just do 2 sentences about gentlemen. Oscar, we need, or you sit down, it's very interesting. Oscar, you stay a minute. Together with young Gisbert Schulze. Okay? So I think we can start. Hazan, introduce yourself.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah? More or less? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Eric Hazan. I'm a partner with McKinsey in Paris, as you may can hear, and I'm the leader of European Digital Consumer Service Line. I was born in year 1 of the internet, approximately the same year that ARPANET started to operate, and when I was 13, I got my first computer. It was connected, you know, it was connected to a tape recorder. I was really proud, but I was not that good at coding, so I gave up and I ended up at McKinsey. Also, just like some of you, I belong to a generation that witnessed the start of the internet revolution. But even having experienced the tremendous changes it brought to our daily life and to the way business is done, when I looked for quantitative insight about the internet impact on the economy, I could not find any. And that's what we started this research.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. My name is Aigool Khalikova. I'm an associate principal in McKinsey's Moscow office, and I work on all topics related to the Russian digital consumer. This research that we're going to present has both a macroeconomic and a microeconomic part, where we ran a proprietary survey in several European countries, including Russia. And for the macroeconomic part, we also owe a debt of gratitude to 2 wonderful economists, Martin Bailey and Christian Sanetian.
So that can you see the presentation? I can see it.
No?
No?
Yeah. There we go.
Okay, it's good.
But it's now on the front page. You probably want to click through.
Yeah. Okay, good. So 1 year ago, we combined both a macroeconomic and a microeconomic approach, and we measured impact of the internet on 13 developed countries. This year, we have extended this survey and this research on what we call aspiring country. 30 countries that, together with the 13 countries that we had already analyzed, are representing more than 90% of the global GDP. So what did we find out when we studied first developed economy? In fact, we are not able to answer the question, how big is the internet economy? We know that if the internet were a country, it would be bigger than Spain, it would grow faster than Brazil, and it has a greater weight in our global economy than critical sectors, such as agriculture or energy. And there is more. Internet maturity correlates with a standard of living increase for citizens. What do we mean by this? What the Industrial Revolution did in 50 years, Internet did it in 15 years in terms of GDP per capita increase. So that means that Internet is in fact a huge GDP growth factor. This is where comes an additional important question. Great impact on the developed economy, but what about the aspiring country? The real impact of Internet on the Russian economy and some preeminent Eastern and European countries has been measured, both from a macro and a microeconomic point of view. We also tried to understand benefits of the Internet to the economy in general, and finally, we understood how to accelerate the impact of this revolution. So what did we find out? Well, first, we are now able to answer the question, how big is the Internet economy in aspiring countries versus mature one? So not surprisingly, on average, in most aspiring countries, Internet impact on GDP is lower than in mature countries, and it contributes up to 2–3% of GDP, but with huge differences between countries. Now when you look into this in more details, we see that more than half of current Internet users are now in aspiring countries and growing at 6 times the rate in developed countries. And that means that in terms of Internet impact on GDP, aspiring countries could very well overpass mature ones in a few years from now. This is confirmed by the fact that there is a significant growth also looking at language use. And Russian is in fact the second fastest growing language on the Internet. Now let's pause for a second. Internet impact on GDP is correlated to maturity. What do we mean by Internet maturity? In substance, we mean a photo of a variety of factors characterizing a country's usage of the Internet, infrastructure, online expenditure, and e-commerce. The fact is that this Internet maturity is itself heavily correlated with Internet ecosystem foundations, such as, for example, quality and quantity of human and financial capital. Well, clearly on this, it appears that aspiring countries have less developed ecosystem foundation, resulting in lower ecosystem maturities and in lower impact on GDP. Aigool, there are huge differences between countries. What about Russia?
Thank you. So this will be no surprise to people working in this market. Russia's score is fairly low on a couple of things. One is financial capital, and one is infrastructure, where unfortunately the country's scores are in the third and fourth quartile. Where Russia does score well, again, no surprise, is human capital, which basically means that, of course, we have people that could do great things with the internet, but they're not well supported by the infrastructure. I see somebody waving. You're not agreeing to the human capital, or you're not agreeing to the infrastructure? He's not agreeing to the human capital. Okay. I guess you could argue, but quantitatively, we do have a reasonably high score on that, but quite low scores on some of the other important things.
And this is a pity not to get the most of the benefits of the web, because in fact the internet globally creates jobs, with the greatest impact in fact in BRIC economies and in aspiring countries. Internet impact is far from jobless growth. On the contrary, for every job cut through productivity gains associated with the technology, 3.5 jobs are created in BRIC countries, which is much more than in the developed ones. So, in fact, we try to deep dive in what drives impact for the internet in the economy. First, there is a direct correlation between the percentage of internet public expenses and impact of internet on GDP. When we speak about public expenses, we mean subsidy, but we also mean public sector consumption. Now look at the countries which are on the right part of the slides. and you would discover some that are very counterintuitive, such as the UK and the US, that seem to have spent public money very significantly in order to use and diffuse the internet with clear impact on the GDP. Russia is on the left. Also very important is the role the government plays in our country as a catalyst for usage by developing services for itself. E-government, a big lever, and Russia has been doing quite big efforts on this front in the past 3 years, actually. Finally, in addition to the quality and coverage of the technical and logistics infrastructure, difficulties in financing and accessing the internet are holding back entrepreneurship in some aspiring countries. Just have a look at the differences between Russian and Polish and Taiwanese score on this index, and that will give you a view of the improvement potential that some countries have. So we know we have a huge development ahead. We know we have some clear levers to pull, and there is a huge upside on the internet for the economy as a whole. However, this is the macroeconomic picture, and it doesn't capture the full story. So we ask ourselves, what does internet impact on the economy mean for consumer? And we used our proprietary panel to check. Aigool, can you tell us how Russian digital consumer behave compared to the European average? Is it something that we can build upon to develop internet economy here?
Only if you give me the clicker.
Yeah, you can.
Here, let me switch so we're catching. Okay, so we ran this survey, as I mentioned, many European countries, including Russia, where we had a sample of 5,000. We found out some things that basically point to the fact that in the active, semi-urban and urban Russian internet population, the trends are quite similar to Western Europe. Of course, people that shop online are more affluent. This is not a surprise. Then we also looked at the different retail categories and the purchasing patterns in terms of is there online or offline buying. And we see several things. So there's some categories on the bottom, such as grocery and office supply, which are still basically in the store. And then there's a couple of other categories. Of course, there's the electronics, computers, so on and so forth, to which nobody is a surprise anymore. They are largely bought online. They've largely gone to digital. However, there's a big second wave, which is that big yellow blob in the middle, which is where currently there's a big battle between online and offline. Because even for categories such as footwear and furniture, you will see that around 20% of active internet consumers have bought that item online. And also a similar amount, over 20%, have researched online before buying. And this is quite a great trend because, of course, 3-4 years ago, you would never have thought that Russian consumers will be buying shoes on the internet or furniture on the internet. And then there's a couple of other interesting things. We have found in this active internet audience about 10% of people that now purchase electronics and computers only online. And even in some of the other categories, such as apparel, there's a couple of percent of people that have gone to completely online. And if we look overall, 70% of respondents said that they bought something online in the previous 3 months. Again, not the whole Russian population, but of the active internet users, which is quite a good number. And the key barriers to shopping online are not payments and things like that, as we sometimes assume, but rather the desire to get the product immediately and the desire to sort of touch, feel, try the product before buying it. Another thing we see is, as mentioned, the importance of online research as well as mobile research. So you will see that from the point of view of researching products online, over 50% of active Russian internet users research products online before buying, no surprise. The interesting thing that mobile research is, of course, also growing. In Western Europe, we see already that in the last 2 years, the number of people that research something off their mobile phones before buying has almost doubled from 12% to 21%. The Russian numbers are similar, and then in very, very sort of urban internet active population, they're even a bit higher. Just like in Europe, social networks in Russia appear to be cannibalizing more traditional ways of communication. Again, no surprise there, I think, for many of you. But what's interesting about it is that how it can be a gateway to digital marketing.
Thanks, Aigool. Yeah, you are absolutely right, actually. In fact, look at how many people are now following retailers online. If you look at the US, 34% of Facebook users are following retailers. If you look at the average in Europe, it's 20%. And Russia is somewhere in the middle. Of course, it's Facebook, which is merely the third social network. But when you look at the other social networks, such as Twitter, we're very close to this. So clearly, social network a gateway for digital marketing in the future. So what is the conclusion from all this? Lower internet contribution of the internet to GDP in aspiring country, but far greater potential for growth, with consumer behavior online more similar than different to US and Western Europe in terms of aspiration, in terms of shopping patterns, and tech attitude. All this confirms the fact that infrastructure and ecosystem development are key to leverage Russia's opportunity on its great human capital. And we believe that policymakers and business executives have some immediate and practical steps to take in order to maximize the positive impact of the internet. Policymakers might consider two sets of levers. The first is acting as catalysts by boosting government use of the internet and by public e-spending. The potential impact of the public sector is enormous. The second is strengthening the domestic ecosystem by investing in infrastructure, in human and financial capital, and forging the kind of environment, business environment that encourages the use of the internet, as well as entrepreneurship and innovation. There is also something for business executives from all sectors. Not only from the internet, all the sectors should also systematically review how the internet allows them to innovate more aggressively, and they should stay alert to up and coming internet trends that have the potential to become game changers. For example, retailers and e-tailers, they need to deep dive into big data, multi-channel and digital marketing now. All industries need to think how to rebalance their media investment away from traditional media to emerging digital channels. In essence, this is our message. The internet, of course, really matters, but it could even matter more for the common good. We hope these facts and ideas were interesting for you, and we thank you for your attention.